A couple of years ago, I was living in a cozy cottage nestled in the outskirts of a suburban area in Northern California. The neighborhood, devoid of streetlights, would plunge into darkness at night, especially when the moon's glow was concealed by thick clouds. However, rather than feeling unsettled, I found solace in the tranquil ambience, which added to the charm of my humble abode on those dimly lit nights. One evening during midwinter, after a long day at work, I arrived home to a cloudy night. As I pulled up to my house, my headlights and the warm glow of the front porch light revealed only a limited view of the surroundings. Stepping out of my car, an unfamiliar scent of cigarette smoke wafted through the air. It struck me as odd since I had never encountered that smell around my house before. Glancing around, I couldn't spot anyone nearby, so I shrugged off the curiosity and made my way inside. Having just finished a demanding shift, which included a few hours of overtime, exhaustion washed over me. Although it was still early, not even 7 p.m., I decided to indulge in a relaxing shower and call it a night. I slowly regained consciousness, my mind foggy and my senses groggy. Something had jolted me from my slumber, a faint noise that echoed through the silence of my house. Initially, I wasn't too concerned as it was not uncommon for my friend to stop by after work and use my shower before heading to his night classes. I had even entrusted him with a spare key, allowing him to enter even if I wasn't home. However, my friend always texted me beforehand, notifying me of his intended visit, and I hadn't heard my phone ring or felt any vibration. I reached out, fumbling on my bedside table, searching for my cell phone. Finally, my hand grasped its familiar shape, and I lifted it, bringing it closer to my face. The screen illuminated the room, casting a blinding light that momentarily overwhelmed my sleep-dulled eyes. This was an era when phones lacked the sophisticated light sensors found in modern devices, capable of adjusting screen brightness according to ambient light levels. My particular phone seemed to possess a brightness that rivaled that of a flashlight. Squinting my eyes against the intense glow, I managed to discern the time display, revealing that it was somewhere past 9 o'clock in the evening. However, the brightness of the screen made it difficult to determine whether there was an unread text message waiting for me or not. I strained my eyes, trying to decipher any notifications or indications of recent activity on my phone, but the blinding radiance hindered my efforts. As the haze of sleep gradually lifted, a hint of concern began to creep into my thoughts. Why hadn't my friend informed me of his visit? Why was I unable to locate any messages on my phone? Questions swirled in my mind, urging me to investigate further and discover the source of the noise that had stirred me from my slumber. With a mixture of curiosity and a growing sense of unease, I braced myself to uncover the truth behind the mysterious disturbance within the confines of my home. I placed my phone gently on the nightstand, realizing it was time to reconnect with the real world. "Sarah," I called out, my voice echoing through the quietness of my home. A brief moment of silence lingered in the air, heightening my anticipation. Suddenly, the distinct sound of hurried footsteps reverberated from the bottom floor, growing louder with each passing second. The urgency in those footfalls sent a chill down my spine, propelling me into action. Without a second thought, I propelled myself out of bed, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. My feet carried me swiftly across the room as I made a beeline for the closet, my mind racing to comprehend the sudden commotion that had invaded the serenity of my surroundings. Fumbling with the doorknob, I swung open the door and swiftly stepped inside, feeling a rush of adrenaline course through my veins. As I closed the closet door behind me, the thunderous thuds of footsteps grew nearer, now climbing up the stairs with an alarming swiftness. Each step they took sent reverberations through the house, as if the very foundation trembled in response to the impending arrival. The urgency of the situation propelled me to scan the closet, seeking a hiding spot that would conceal me from whomever was storming through my home. Heart pounding in my chest, I crouched low, pressing myself against the wall, my senses heightened to their fullest capacity. The sound of heavy breathing filled my ears, blending with the cacophony of footsteps that now approached the upper floor. My mind raced, contemplating the potential motives behind this unexpected intrusion. Fear mingled with curiosity, creating a complex web of emotions that fueled my desire to remain hidden. As the footsteps reached the top of the staircase, I held my breath, the anticipation nearly suffocating. The air was thick with tension, the silence deafening. I strained my ears, trying to discern any clue about the intruder's identity or purpose. But all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat, resonating in the confined space of the closet. Minutes stretched into eternity as I waited, my mind playing out various scenarios. Would they pass by the closet, unaware of my presence? Or would they pause, aware that someone was hiding in the shadows? The uncertainty hung heavily in the air, casting a veil of apprehension over my thoughts. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the sound of footsteps receded, fading into the distance. A wave of relief washed over me as I realized the intruder had moved on, their purpose temporarily fulfilled. Yet, a lingering sense of unease remained, a reminder that my home was no longer the sanctuary I had imagined. With caution, I eased open the closet door, peering out into the dimly lit hallway. It was empty now, devoid of any signs of the recent intrusion. Slowly, I emerged from my hiding place, cautiously venturing out to assess the aftermath of the unexpected disturbance. As I surveyed the surroundings, questions swirled in my mind. Who had entered my home? What had driven them to run through the lower floor with such urgency? The answers eluded me, leaving me with a sense of unease and an unquenchable thirst for the truth. The two-story house I found myself in had a layout that consisted of 3 rooms on the upper floor. As I stood in the middle of the hallway, I noticed 2 closed bedroom doors, one to my left and the other to my right. At the far end of the hallway, there was a slightly ajar door leading to the bathroom. Suddenly, I heard heavy footsteps reverberating through the house, coming closer and closer to my location. Panic surged within me, knowing that an intruder was making their way toward me. Just in the nick of time, the stranger barged down the hallway, sprinting past my bedroom door and rushing into the bathroom. Relief washed over me as I realized the intruder had momentarily diverted their attention to the bathroom. It was a stroke of luck that bought me precious seconds to devise a plan. Without hesitation, I swiftly moved to the closet in my bedroom, aware that I needed to escape this potentially dangerous situation. In a swift motion, I located the access point to the attic concealed within the ceiling of my closet. The adrenaline pumping through my veins heightened my senses, enabling me to quickly open the access panel. With a surge of determination, I hoisted myself up, pulling my body into the hidden refuge of the attic. As I settled into the attic, the sound of my racing heart gradually subsided, allowing me to catch my breath. From my hidden vantage point, I anxiously awaited the next turn of events, hoping to remain undetected while assessing the situation and planning my next move. As I struggled to gather my strength and hoist myself up, my body trembling with exhaustion, the rush of adrenaline coursing through my veins heightened my senses. The relentless pounding in my chest seemed to synchronize with the urgency of my situation. My every instinct screamed at me to move, to find a safe haven, as I fought to regain control over my shaking limbs. Amidst my desperate struggle, the silence was abruptly shattered by the sound of hurried footsteps racing out of the bathroom. My heart skipped a beat, and a surge of panic flooded my system. My feet had barely made their way inside the attic, my mind racing with thoughts of potential hiding places, when, with a forceful jolt, my bedroom door flung open, filling the room with a gust of unease. The sound reverberated through the air, sending shivers down my spine. My breath caught in my throat as the intruder's presence invaded my sanctuary. The footsteps, frantic and determined, rushed into my room and abruptly halted. I pressed my back against the attic wall, my heart pounding, beads of sweat forming on my forehead. In the tense silence, I held my breath, hoping against hope that I would remain undetected. As the intruder's eyes scanned the empty room, devoid of any visible occupants, they wasted no time in retracing their steps, their footsteps fading into the dimly lit hallway. The temporary relief washed over me, but I knew it was fleeting. I couldn't let my guard down. I had to remain vigilant. Summoning every ounce of courage, I cautiously made my way back into the room. The overhead light flickered with uncertainty as I tentatively reached out, hesitating for a moment before finally giving into the need for illumination. With a resounding click, the room was bathed in a stark glow, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The sudden brightness only served to amplify my vulnerability, amplifying every creak and rustle, every potential giveaway of my presence. Every passing second felt like an eternity as I listened intently, my senses on high alert. My heart pounded in my chest, threatening to betray my precarious hiding spot. The room seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with tension, as if even the house itself recognized the gravity of the moment. Without hesitation, the intruder's focus narrowed, fixating on the closet door standing innocently against the wall. My heart dropped as their eyes bore into the door, their intentions unmistakable. An agonizing moment hung in the air as I braced myself, knowing that discovery was inevitable. And then, with a surge of raw force, the closet door was mercilessly wrenched open, revealing its hollow contents. The sight of the empty closet seemed to momentarily perplex the intruder. Confusion flickered across their face, momentarily clouding their determination. They stood there, their breaths shallow and rapid, scanning the room for any sign of life. The realization that their search had yielded no results gradually sank in, and a flicker of frustration flashed across their eyes. However, their resolve remained unbroken. With a determined grimace, they pivoted on their heels, resolute in their pursuit. It was clear they were not ready to give up just yet. Their footsteps echoed down the hallway, growing fainter as they moved away from the room, but I knew their departure was only temporary. Danger still lurked, ever closer to discovering my precarious whereabouts. The room fell into an uneasy silence once more, but my heart continued to race, pounding in my ears like a war drum. The threat had momentarily receded, granting me a small reprieve, but the tension lingered, suffocating the air. I remained hidden, my mind racing with thoughts. As I huddled in the confined space of my attic, positioned just a mere foot away from the access point, my heart pounded in my chest. I had strategically placed myself there, ready to spring into action if the intruders dared to ascend the ladder and breach the sanctuary of my hiding spot. With a limited view, my line of sight only extended to their lower bodies, allowing me a glimpse of their weathered work boots and the tattered cuffs of their faded blue jeans. Time seemed to stretch as I strained my ears, desperately trying to discern any sound that would indicate their presence. A hushed silence enveloped the air, amplifying the rustling of my own breath and the frantic beat of my heart. The weight of anticipation bore down upon me, the adrenaline coursing through my veins, heightening my senses. Suddenly, a few seconds later, their purposeful movements halted, and I sensed a shift in their actions. It was as if they had found something of interest within the confines of my closet. Anxiety gripped me tighter as I tried to envision what they were doing, but my restricted viewpoint left me grasping at fragments of the unknown. A cacophony shattered the stillness, resonating from my room with a forceful crash. The jarring sound echoed through the house, piercing the veil of silence, and it sent shivers down my spine. Accompanying the clamor was a guttural scream filled with a potent mix of frustration and anger. That cry reverberated through the walls, seeping into the very essence of my being, instilling a deep sense of unease within me. It was in that moment, as the eerie scream lingered in the air, that I fully grasped the gravity of the situation. The intruder's presence was not just an intrusion upon my physical space, but an invasion of my psychological sanctuary. The emotional intensity behind that anguished outburst sent a chilling message, one that resonated beyond mere words. It was a stark reminder that danger lurked within the confines of my own home, a haunting realization that I was not safe, even within the supposed refuge of my attic. As I clung to the darkness of the attic, the unnerving scream etched itself into my memory, forever marking that incident as a turning point. It fueled my determination to protect myself and my sanctuary, propelling me to confront the unknown with unwavering resolve. The eerie silence hung heavy in the air as the man's thunderous footsteps receded, disappearing down the stairs. My heart pounded in my chest, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The echoes of crashes and clatters reverberated throughout the house, a dissonant symphony of destruction. I huddled in the attic, trembling with fear and uncertainty, seeking solace in the darkness. My mind raced, desperately trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding below. I realized with a sinking feeling that I had left my cell phone behind in my panicked rush for safety, severing my lifeline to the outside world. The thought of descending the stairs without alerting the intruder seemed like an insurmountable challenge. Every creaking step threatened to betray my presence, amplifying the tension that gripped me. Time crawled by, marked only by the haunting stillness that had settled over the house. The absence of noise became deafening, heightening my senses to the slightest sound. I strained my ears, searching for any sign that the danger had passed. Minutes stretched into an eternity as I remained crouched in the attic, my breath shallow and strained. Finally, a glimmer of hope flickered within me. The oppressive silence persisted, broken only by my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. I cautiously began to count, each number uttered in a hushed whisper. With every digit, I weighed the risks of descending against the possibility of summoning help. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity as I inched closer to a decision. When I reached the count of 1,000, an arbitrary yet seemingly safe milestone, I made up my mind. The stillness, though unnerving, hinted at the intruder's departure or distraction. It was a gamble I had to take. Gathering my courage, I carefully crept towards the attic stairs, my movements deliberate, so as not to betray my presence. With bated breath, I descended each step with excruciating slowness, each footfall a potential source of calamity. The wood groaned beneath my weight, a symphony of trepidation. Every creak and squeak amplified the thudding of my heart. Each agonizing inch brought me closer to the ground floor, closer to freedom from the confinement of the attic. At last, I reached the bottom of the stairs. The house appeared disheveled, a battlefield strewn with the remnants of the intruder's rampage. Furniture lay in disarray, upturned and shattered, testaments to the chaos that had unfolded. But the man was nowhere to be seen, his presence now confined to the echoes of his violent intrusion. Summoning every ounce of courage, I made my way to a nearby phone. My trembling hands struggled to dial the numbers, anticipation mingled with anxiety. As the call connected, I spoke in a hushed voice, my words barely audible even to myself. Describing the harrowing events that had unfolded, I pleaded for help, my voice a desperate plea for salvation. The police were on their way, their reassurances providing a glimmer of hope in the aftermath of the storm. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face, a blend of fear, relief, and sheer exhaustion. The nightmare had subsided, but its scars would linger, a constant reminder of the fragility of safety and the strength of the human spirit. As I cautiously stepped out of the closet, my heart raced with adrenaline, my eyes darting around the room to assess the situation. It was immediately evident that an intruder had forcefully overturned my bed, scattering pillows and sheets across the floor in a desperate search for me. The loud crash I had heard moments ago was the result of their frantic efforts to locate my hiding place. Realizing that my cell phone was nowhere to be found, I quickly made my way towards the landline phone situated on the bedside table. My trembling fingers dialed the emergency number for the police, desperation fueling my actions. As the call connected, I struggled to maintain composure while explaining the harrowing circumstances I found myself in. With each passing second, my anxiety grew, but I knew I had to stay hidden and await the arrival of the authorities. The unnerving silence that enveloped the room amplified the sound of my pounding heart as I anxiously listened for any sign of the intruder's whereabouts. Every creaking floorboard or distant noise made my pulse quicken, wondering if they were closing in on my location. Minutes felt like an eternity as I remained hidden, my senses on high alert, straining to catch any hint of movement or voices from outside my room. The suspense was unbearable, but I knew I had to maintain my position until help arrived. Finally, a glimmer of hope pierced the tension as I heard the distant sound of police officers calling out from downstairs, their authoritative voices breaking the silence and reassuring me that assistance was on its way. Relief washed over me as I realized that the presence of the police marked the beginning of the end for the intruder's menacing intrusion. With newfound strength, I cautiously emerged from my hiding spot, my eyes scanning the room once more, this time with a sense of gratitude for the arrival of the law enforcement officers who would bring an end to this terrifying ordeal. Though shaken by the experience, I felt a surge of courage knowing that I had taken the necessary steps to ensure my safety. The sight of my overturned bed served as a stark reminder of the violation I had endured, but it also served as a testament to my resilience and the importance of seeking help in times of distress. As the police swept through the house, searching for the intruder, I eagerly awaited their confirmation that the immediate threat had been neutralized. Their professional voices and footsteps echoed through the quiet halls, gradually replacing my fear with a sense of security. In the aftermath of this harrowing encounter, I would undoubtedly face the daunting task of rebuilding my sense of security and fortifying my home against future threats. But for now, I took solace in the knowledge that I had overcome the initial shock, taken decisive action, and would soon be surrounded by the reassurance and support of law enforcement, reclaiming my space from the intruder's intrusion. With cautious steps, I crossed the threshold of the house, feeling a heavy unease settle in the pit of my stomach. An ominous anticipation had accompanied me, and unfortunately, reality matched my apprehensions in a disheartening spectacle of chaos. The scene that unfolded before my eyes was one of sheer disorder and wanton destruction. Chairs lay strewn across the floor, their once sturdy legs now splayed in surrender. The sofa, once a haven of comfort, had been ruthlessly upended, its overturned form seeming to taunt the tranquil moments it had once witnessed. Shelves that were once adorned with cherished books, cherished photographs, and beloved trinkets now bore the scars of a tempestuous rampage. The floor had transformed into a battlefield, scattered with the casualties of this senseless assault. Books lay open, their pages fluttering delicately in a mournful dance, while shattered picture frames wept for their irreplaceable contents. The once beloved knickknacks that had brought joy and fond memories now lay forgotten and forsaken, their significance eclipsed amidst the wreckage. As my gaze moved further, despair tightened its grip on my heart as I entered the kitchen. The chaos had not spared this sanctuary of nourishment and warmth, rather, it had extended its cruel reach to taint every corner. The once stalwart cupboards, guardians of my culinary treasures, now stood ajar, their doors dangling precariously. It was as if they, too, had succumbed to the relentless assault, their resilience worn thin. In a grotesque display of disorder, the contents of the cupboards now adorned the floor. Boxes, once neatly stacked and meticulously organized, now lay scattered in a haphazard collage of mismatched items. Canned goods, once patiently awaiting their turn to contribute to a meal, now stood as fallen soldiers, their protective casings torn asunder and their contents spilled and intermingled. The wreckage before me painted a picture of a grand feast gone horribly wrong, with chaos reigning supreme. As I surveyed the aftermath, my heart weighed heavy with the burden of violation. Amidst the wreckage, a peculiar absence caught my eye, further intensifying the disconcertion that hung in the air. It was the absence of a single knife from its designated place in the wooden block that drew my attention. Not because of its material value, but due to the significance it held for me. That knife had been a faithful companion throughout countless culinary endeavors, a trusted tool that had effortlessly sliced through ingredients with precision and grace. And now it had vanished, leaving behind an eerie void in its wake. The chaos that surrounded me told a tale of destruction, a wanton desecration of my personal space and cherished possessions. Yet, amidst the wreckage, it became evident that the intruder's motives extended beyond mere ransacking. The absence of the knife hinted at a calculated act, a deliberate choice made amidst the frenzy. Who would steal a solitary knife, and for what sinister purpose? These unsettling questions hung in the air, casting a shadow over the already palpable sense of unease that permeated the house. The police meticulously combed through every nook and cranny of my house, conducting a thorough search from top to bottom. Their efforts revealed a disturbing discovery. The side door had been forcefully pried open, leaving clear marks of a crowbar's intervention. The sight sent chills down my spine, realizing the intrusion that had taken place within the sanctity of my home. As the authorities continued their investigation, they stumbled upon a few scattered cigarette butts along the perimeter of my fence line. Nestled beside them were crumpled pieces of foil and an empty pen tube, which the police informed me were often associated with the consumption of illicit substances like speed. It became apparent that the intruder had been clandestinely observing my residence, lurking in the shadows, perhaps finding solace in smoking while surveying his target. The realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. When I had returned home, the intruder must have been lurking nearby, masked by the veil of a cigarette smoke. The gravity of the situation sank in, and the police, recognizing the imminent threat, advised me to seek refuge with family or friends for the night. They emphasized the urgency of repairing the broken door to restore my sense of security. While I contemplated the police's recommendation, I decided against sleep, driven by a mix of fear and determination. Instead, I embarked on fortifying my home against any potential re-entry. With a resolute mind, I moved a sturdy shelf to block the compromised entrance, barricading the path that had been violated. The hours that followed were a blur of frantic activity as I meticulously cleaned and restored order to my home. My senses were heightened, and I frequently found myself drawn to the window, clutching a flashlight in hand. With trembling fingers, I aimed the beam along the fence line, the same spot where the police had discovered the remnants of the intruder's presence. However, my vigilant gaze yielded no trace of the elusive perpetrator. As the night wore on, fatigue threatened to consume me, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins refused to relent. Each creak of the floorboards amplified my awareness, and every gust of wind outside seemed to carry whispers of potential danger. Nevertheless, I remained steadfast, resolved to protect what was rightfully mine. The events of that fateful evening left an indelible mark on my psyche, reminding me of the fragility of personal security. The violation of my home and the eerie evidence left behind served as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk just beyond our doorsteps. From that moment onward, I vowed to take every necessary precaution to safeguard my sanctuary, ensuring that such an ordeal would never be repeated.